Welcome in to another episode of the My Two Bits Gators Football Podcast. I am one of your hosts, Ben, joined as always by your other host, Mr. Randy. Randy, you ducking hurricanes? You feeling all right? We staying out of the wind, out of the rain? How's it going over there?
Feeling all right, my man. It's good to get a little bit of the rain. The grass was dry, the plants were dry. But you know what they say, when it rains for many, many days consecutively. So it's going to be interesting to see here in the next week what happens and what turns out from as a result of these storms.
Yeah. It looks like we're going to be okay though from the looks of it. So I think it's going to be. I think we're going to dodge a bullet at least on this one. We'll see what happens next go around. Let's talk about who's not going to dodge a bullet, and that's Billy Napier's tenure with the Gators. All right, there we go. So a little fancy name for the pod tonight. We're going to call this "With Billy Napier's Tenure Sunsetting, the Coaching Carousel Resumes." So we're harkening back to a pod we did very early on in season 1, talking about the coaching carousel coming to an end. Well, we're back on it now. So with that, we'll get into this talk. Our intro, mission, accuracy, disclaimer, vision, and agenda. As always, our mission is to provide factual analysis of all things Florida Gator football. Our accuracy disclaimer is that our information will be accurate to the best of our possible ability. We will cite our sources whenever we use them, and all statistical data comes from either ESPN or stats.ncaa.org, and recruiting data comes from on3.com unless otherwise noted. All right, our vision is to have unfiltered conversation around the product on the field, as well as recruiting and overall coaching decisions. Our analysis will be based on review of film, and while we will express opinion, that opinion should always be based in some form of fact. We will also evaluate strategy and tactics and discuss our observation of player personnel decisions as well as on the field execution. So tonight we are going to have a discussion around the next potential, at least, coach at Florida. We built a list here, and we'll be looking at each coach that has been mentioned in the recent weeks, at least the ones we think have a legitimate shot of coming here. We'll examine their background and whether or not we think they're a good fit for the Swamp. So that is the idea here. This is not ultimately supposed to be a long pod. We'll see how that works out, because that sometimes doesn't always go the way we plan, but that's the goal. And then at the end here, we're going to play Keep It or Pitch It for Texas this week and go through the results from the Sims before we wrap up and sign off. So with that, get us started. Give us a brief little recap of how did we get here? Not that we really want to think about it, but how did we get here, Randy? Why are we where we are?
Do we have enough time for that?
Yeah, let's make it quick.
Okay. So at the end of the day, how did we get here? Well, it all started on December 5th, 2000. No, I'm kidding. This is not a trashy romance novel by any means. Billy Napier's overall record is 20-22. I rest my case, Your Honor. No, Billy Napier is the 29th coach in Florida football history since the inaugural season of back in 1906. Billy Napier in that 20-22 is 10-15 versus SEC opponents and 3-12 in rivalry games. What is a rivalry game, if you ask? Georgia, LSU, Miami, Tennessee, Florida State. His 48.7% winning percentage is the lowest for a non-interim coach at the University of Florida since 1950.
Well, that's
good. A little while ago.
It's only 75 years ago.
That's
good.
all.
It's good.
In case of there are those of you wondering regarding his contract, there's buyout clause. There's several numbers being spurted around between 19.6 million and up to 21.8 million. This is the reality of it. 50% of the total buyout is due within 30 days of his firing. The remaining 50% is paid in equal installments on July 15th of each year until the rest of the contract is fulfilled. This is what I thought was extremely interesting. There is no clause to offset the buyout if Napier lands another job.
Yep.
So typically we see in the coaching realms, hey, there's this little clause here. Hey, you get another job, the university is not on the hook. The university can prorate or stop payments. Yeah, no. It is reported that this entire contract is worth somewhere in the vicinity of $51.8 million. Yep. Yikes. Ben, here's another fun fact for you, buddy. Napier would have to win his next 105 games to have the same winning percentage as Kirby Smart.
Yep.
105 games. So there's that. And the last reason, of course, regardless of what Napier has done outside the white rectangle that is the football field, done a great job with staff, NIL, recruiting, and getting better at recruiting, Gator made, all the things that they're doing for Gator players. He continues to fall on his sword regarding the offense, and the offense has proven to be extremely deficient. As B mentioned in a previous pod, the offensive rankings are in the late 80s, all the way back to ranking in the 110s and teens. And remember, there's only 133 teams in FBS football. Our defense is up there in the 30s, high 30s, low 40s, high 20s, yet our offense is around the century mark. Unacceptable. And that is that.
Yep. I think that sums it up well. And you did mention the buyout between the 19 and change and the 21 and change. It depends when he is fired this season is what contributes to that, right? So if you continue to pay him his salary through the year, it costs you less when you fire him. And if you don't, it costs you more. So it's 6 1, half dozen the other. It makes no difference. You're either going to spend it on the salary and then fire him and pay the 19, or you're going to fire him now and pay the 21. So it's a moot point as far as the buyout goes. It's literally just money you're paying him or not paying him in his salary versus the buyout. That's all the difference is between those two numbers that you're hearing, just so you know why you're hearing the two different ones. So
exactly. I just want to know who structured that contract. That's a phenomenally structured contract for the head
so
coach.
His agent's name is escaping me. It's a very famous agent. A lot of coaches have him. He's very, very good, obviously. And yeah, we screwed the pooch when we signed that one for sure. Is not a good deal that we signed there. I have to look it up. But
you were thinking of Jimmy Sexton.
Yes, that is who I'm thinking of, and I believe that's correct. And he did a good job there for sure. So yeah, we bit the big one on that one. Really did not do ourselves any favors on the way this thing is structured. So with that, let's move on. We know that we're done with Billy here, certainly, and hopefully the university follows suit here soon, especially after this weekend and what I do not think will be a win, but we'll get there in a minute. So let's talk about potential replacements. So a couple names that have been floated out there that we are not going to talk about other than to mention them here, and I'll call them possible but unlikely, is Dan Lanning and Alex Golesh. Dan Lanning being the much more unlikely, obviously, because I don't think he's coming here, right? They just got a phenomenal win this weekend against Penn State. They've always been doing very well, have an unlimited NIL budget from one Mr. Knight up there at Nike. I don't think he's leaving the Phil money. I don't think he's leaving the Pacific Northwest. I think he's got a good thing going up there. I can't see him parting ways with that to come down here. I just don't see it. Obviously the Big Ten is the other premier conference. Clearly, you can make arguments about which one is better. I'm not getting into that right now. But ultimately, at the end of the day, that is the other big boy conference out there. And he's in it with a great team, with a great budget, with great backing, a great university that's got plenty of financing for what's needed for the new, House versus NCAA rules and financing as well. Dan's not going anywhere. I mean, that would just be absolutely nuts. I just don't see it. The other name that's been mentioned is, of course, USF's Alex Golesh, especially after what happened in week 2. But realistically, that would be another group of 5 head coach, right, that is unproven in the SEC or any other Power 4, conference. I think we just made that mistake, right? I don't see us making it again, at least not right now. And I'm not saying it definitively would be a mistake. I'm not saying Alex Golesh is not a better coach. He probably is. But ultimately, that's a risk that you don't typically make back to back, right? You're going to want somebody who's more proven here, I think, and that's what we're going to discuss here moving forward. Any thoughts on those two before we move on to the other possible candidates?
Yeah, I don't think you misspoke there at all. I think Phil Knight very famously came on the record and been saying is unlimited resources. It is what it is. Yep. That's fine. Money's no object. Clearly. I mean, there's that. Alex Golesh, yeah, he's got, that Josh Heupel, he comes from that vein, but at the same time, he's going to do very good at USF. He's going to do really, really good. He's going to get maybe in 10 years, maybe, depending on what happens with recruiting and everything else, but right now, he's just not ready for the SEC, as neither was, as a good friend of mine coins the the name Baby Bayou Billy. I'll just leave that there.
Yep. There you go. We got some fun comments on that nickname. So there you go. All right. So let's go to our first real candidate here, if you will. First candidate that has any kind of possibility, I guess you would say. And these are in no particular order of possibility. We are not ranking these in terms of our like or dislike. We are going to tell you if we think they're a good fit or not. But these are in no particular order, I guess is what I'm trying to say here. No likelihood of probability, anything like that. So Curt Cignetti, number one on the list here. Again, in no particular order. So I shouldn't have said that. But the Sig, current coach of Indiana University, of course, 64 years old. So he is a little up there in age. Has previously held head coaching positions at James Madison, Elon, Indiana, of course, and Pennsylvania. Indiana University of Pennsylvania, IUP, excuse me. He is a 5-time conference coach of the year, and in 2024, national coach of the year last year for what he did with IU. He is the only college football coach to have started 10-0 with 2 different teams in the first season. He's never done that. Wow. He achieved this unique distinction in consecutive seasons with James Madison in 2023 and Indiana University in 2024. So I'm sorry, not in the first season. He's the only one to have ever done it with 2 different teams, period. I apologize. I misread that note. So nobody else has ever done that. That's pretty amazing. FCS record. So a little breakdown here of past performance. So his FCS record all time, so again, FCS, is 100 wins and 31 losses. Conference in FCS was 61-17. That includes Division I and Division II FCS performance. So again, that's still got Division I and Division II in FCS. His FBS record is 34-6. So that's kind of good. And his conference record in FBS is 22-4, and his Power 4 record keeps getting better, 15-2 and 9-1. So the guy's pretty good in terms of record. Now, there's some other things that you could talk about, obviously, but in terms of record, pretty good. So is he a good fit? Yes, definitively. Despite the age factor, consider, by the way, for some perspective, that Saban turned 56 early in his first season at Alabama. So it's not like we're light years away from that. It is, obviously, he is older, but still. Cignetti is a great fit for UF. He is offensively minded, clearly, does a great job in making his QBs look stellar in his offense, and maximizes the talent he has on his roster. So this maybe is the biggest thing to me. His roster this year, 72nd in the 247 team composite. The Gators are 12th. He started 4-0. Last year, he was 57th in the composite. We were 13th. And last season, he was 11-2 and took his team to the college football playoff. Yes, they lost first round. I understand that. Yes, they were outmatched by some teams that had far superior talent, but they had far superior talent. He was 57th in the team composite rankings. What does he do with a team that has a top 15 composite like UF? And most importantly than anything else, like him or not, his press conference answer last year wasn't a lie. All he does is win. The stats back that up. He can say that because it's true. So I don't know about you guys, but I like people that win. So I think he's a great fit. I think he's a great candidate. I would definitely not mind seeing him here at all. So that's number 1 off the board. What you got? Who's number 2?
Who is number 2? The Lane Train.
Lane Train, baby.
Here we go. All right. First of all, really interesting stuff on the SIG, as I know that term is just, talk about a name, holds a lot of weight there. He's Italian, he's mob, he's coach, he's everything. So really good one there. I think I'm gonna have to agree with you on that, by the way. I think he's gonna be a good fit. That's why I was wondering if he was gonna be too old, or is he still there? But hey, guess what? He's proven to do some things. He can do some things. Okay. There you go. All right. Lane Train, Mr. Lane Kiffin, 50 years young. 50 years young. So those of you who know, full name, Lane Monty Kiffin. As you know, he's the son of Monty Kiffin, NFL coach, coordinator. So here's the interesting thing. Monty's on the defensive side of the football. So on that basis, he always wanted to be on the offensive side of the football to outsmart his dad. Went to Fresno State, played ball there. He never got the starting position. So therefore, his father said, you're not quitting the team. So instead of quitting, he became a graduate assistant, an assistant to graduate assistant. Worked here at Colorado State, yada, yada, yada. And then worked a couple of quality control jobs in the NFL, this, that, and the other. If you remember, Al Davis hired him as the youngest head coach in the NFL, 31 years old at the time, back in 2007. Youngest in Raiders history for sure. And then obviously didn't have a ton of success there at the NFL level. Davis, not very patient with coaches, let him go. Tennessee introduced him as the school's 21st head coach back in 2008. And here's the thing, back then at 33 was the youngest head coach in Division I FBS. It's just crazy. Pat Fitzgerald up at Northwestern was youngest, but when Lane was hired, he became the youngest. If you all remember, it was a short stint at Tennessee. During a press conference, he famously called out Urban Meyer for recruiting violations. And I'm not sure if you remember the story, but the odd part was when he was calling out Meyer at the same time, he named the recruit, which was also a NCAA violation. Well, an SEC conference rule violation. And then that led to Jeremy Foley wanting a public apology. He got his public apology. And then if you remember what he said about Alshon Jeffrey, who went to South Carolina, he basically said if he went to Carolina, he would end up pumping gas for the rest of his life like all the other players in that state who went to South Carolina.
Yep.
Jeffrey still went to South Carolina, then became a pick in the second round, went to the Bears, and then the Eagles, where he won a Super Bowl championship. So there's that. Pete Carroll departed for the Seahawks in 2010. Kiffin resumed role at USC from 2010 on. Of course, if you remember in USC, it was a fun time. It was an exciting time. But in other words, when he came back to USC, they had just got some sanctions from the NCAA from their previous involvement. And that's the thing. When he was back at USC years ago, he served as an offensive assistant under Carroll. So that's why when Carroll went to the Seahawks, it made sense for him to come back. Tenure was okay, but it ended miserably, leading the chance of Fire Kiffin coming out of the Dome. After that, last season finished 4-8. January 2014, accepted the OC job at Alabama after Nussmeier left for Michigan. After Alabama for a short stint, went to the Owls of FAU for a few seasons. Went 11-3 in their first season. First season over 500 for the Owls since 2008. Then 10-3 the next season with a Conference USA chip. After that, became the 39th coach at Ole Miss. First season went 10-2, only the second time in 50 years at Ole Miss. They won 10 games. Wild. Yep. And then in 23, went 11-2 with a Peach Bowl win, their first 11-win season in Ole Miss history. So and last year, of course, the Gators knocked them off, didn't go to the playoff. They finished 9-3, however. So this is what's interesting. The Lane Train overall coaching record, 110-52. Very interesting. Back at USC, he actually finished that season 3-2. But the reason being is because wins were vacated. Couple fun facts. Lane and his wife, ex-wife, may be reunited. Layla Reeves. She's an alumnus of the University of Florida. I'll take it one step further. Lane's agent, none other than Jimmy Sexton.
Yep.
Coincidence? Don't know. So here's the thing about Lane, right? His father, head football coach, been around a long time. Lane's been in a lot of dynamic situations. Pete Carroll knows how to run an organization. Lane spent a lot of time with him, of course, at Bama with Saban, the Dark Sith Lord. And the thing that was interesting about his time at Bama is he actually sped up their offense, right? he did it in a lot of different ways, but did it with pro-style sophistication, right? Fast pace, fast pace, fast pace. And that actually sped up a lot of what Alabama was doing in previous years. So at the end of the day, Lane Kiffin, is he a good fit for Florida? In some ways, he is. In some ways, he is not. Has Lane grown up? Obviously, we'd like to think he's grown up and done some things here at Ole Miss, which he's done really, really great things, but he still continues to troll other coaches. I get it.
Especially no ours.
Including our current head coach. Spot the ball. But here's the thing. Lane is still 50 years old. He's still got a chip on his shoulder. He still has a lot to prove. I don't believe that blends well here in Gainesville. And again, that is my opinion. Outside of that, B, I'm curious to hear yours about the Lane train.
I would say I think he's a better fit than you think he is. I still have some questions about his maturity at times, for sure. I'm with you there. But I do think it's come a long way since the Tennessee days, certainly when he was, just running off at the mouth, as you made mention of in several instances there. I think he's a lot better than he was then in terms of watching what he says. I think most of the trolling now, I would akin more to, Spurrier-esque type comments, things that, they'll get him some flack, but nobody's gonna flip out and go over the moon, right? They're gonna laugh more than they're gonna, get into some kind of shouting match or any kind of public debate about it, right? And so for that reason, I actually think he's a better fit than you think. I do still have some questions. He wouldn't be my number one pick, though that's not what this is about, but he would be near the top of the list than most, is I guess what I would say. So,
and that's a fair statement.
Yeah, I think I like him better than you do here from a fit standpoint. Not saying from a background standpoint, but from a fit standpoint, I think my opinion of him is better. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see. I think likelihood wise, he is probably one of the higher ones, despite all of the talk and chatter back and forth. I think he definitely ranks up there, along with one other one that's on this list that we'll get to. But at any rate, we'll see what happens, of course. But he is interesting for sure. So
he's interesting, and that's the thing. There are a lot of we talked about ties to Spurrier, the MO, some of the quotes, and that's the thing. I wonder if this fan base would be would wear that down over time like it did Spurrier, and that's probably the biggest question mark there for me. But anyways, moving on.
Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting to think about. All right, up next. One, John Gruden. Not sure how realistic this one is either, honestly, but there's been enough talk about it in a vein of it being realistically possible that we felt we had to put it on the list. So we did. So John Gruden, you're probably familiar with the name. He's relatively famous. Extensive head coaching background, of course, but all of the head coaching background did come in the pro ranks. And we have seen that experiment fail so far with one Bill Belichick. Small sample size, granted, but that doesn't necessarily indicate potential success or failure of a different coach, right? Gruden is not the same, obviously, as Bill, and is younger than Bill. I believe he's 62 and Bill's like 76, 74. I don't know. He's up there. So Gruden does have a college coaching experience, but only as an analyst and a QB coach at Tennessee, Southern Missouri State, and the University of the Pacific. And all of it is pre-1990. So we are getting back there in terms of when he was last in Division I for his coaching experience. So he does carry an offensive background as a coach and is experienced in working with both QBs and receivers positionally. So that does speak well in terms of fit, right, for Florida. We always look for a more offensive-minded coach or somebody that knows how to hire the right offensive coordinator. Wonder why. But, moving along. Interesting fact here. Now, I say fact. It came from Wikipedia. I can't swear to its authenticity. I looked to try to validate this elsewhere and could not. So I can't swear that this is a fact. I know the organization that I'm going to talk about really existed, was a real thing. Definitely these people were involved, but some of the details here I can't swear to. So in May of 2010, that is true, Gruden became a volunteer assistant offensive line coach at Carrollwood Day School in Tampa, Florida, shortly after being fired from Tampa Bay. Gruden then created the Fired Football Coaches Association, the FFCA. That is real. That happened. The organization was, quote, a football think tank and had its headquarters in a rented office in a Tampa Bay strip mall. Also true. I was able to validate that as well. The FFCA was known to have a large amount of game and player film collected by Gruden, as well as playbooks, and Gruden was known to have game plans of his own that he kept updated over the years as he was not actively coaching. That I could not validate. That I could not validate, but very interesting. Many coaches such as Chip Kelly, Urban Meyer, Jim Haslett, Rick Venturi, Sean McVay, Greg Schiano, and Monty Kiffin, and many players came to the facility to watch film and talk with Gruden. Gruden closed the FFCA upon his return to coaching in 2018, moving the game and player film along with other information he held to Oakland. Couldn't substantiate that one either anywhere else. Wow. So I can't swear to those being true because they were on Wikipedia. And as you know, if you want to change something on Wikipedia, you can go into Wikipedia and change it. So that could be false information. I can't swear to it. I don't have a source. I cannot, document it. These were sourced articles, but in terms of like they were referenced or whatever, but I could not validate that actual information as being 100% factual. So very interesting, however, because that is a wealth of information, obviously. Getting information on offenses from Chip Kelly, Urban Meyer, Jim Haslett, Rick Venturi, Sean McVay, right? Those are some big names. So pretty interesting stuff. He obviously has a very established pedigree as a head coach in the NFL, though his record isn't stellar. He was 117-112 and 5-4 in the postseason and as an NFL head coach. He was the youngest coach to ever win a Super Bowl. However, big asterisk on that if you know that timing and go back to 2003. A lot of credit for that Super Bowl always went to Tony Dungy for building the team that he got the ring with. I would tend to agree with that sentiment for the record. Nothing against John. He was still the coach that led him there, but at the end of the day, Dungy built the team. So, Is he a good fit? I would say yes and no here. The name recognition and offensive background would be great to have, clearly. But there's some serious questions for me about his potential effectiveness in a college college coaching position in the current climate. Again, his last experience in college was 1989. And at this point in his career, I don't know where that falls in either. However, having said all that, I do think the new structure of college football, the game, the NIL, the portal, i.e. akin to free agency, right, would be more favorable to a coach with a pro background. However, does that translate? Hasn't so far with Bill, so I don't know, right? It kind of depends on the GM, what the setup looks like, right? How that gets handled. I think there's a lot of factors that go into play there. So there are upsides to his background, but there are also potentially a lot of unknowns, right? So kind of a wild card here. Could be okay, could be a train wreck. I just don't know from a fit standpoint if it works out or not. That's a tough call. So that's what I got on Gruden.
For sure. I thought you would have made a Chucky reference, but okay, fine, no problem.
No Chucky references, no.
Fair enough. All right, next one on the list, Jedd Fisch. Jedd Fisch. Yes,
yeah, I like this one. I'm a fan of this one
for
sure.
Yeah, a lot of articles, a lot of stuff written up about Jedd. Let's get into Jedd. 49 years young. And for those of you who know or might have heard a reference, graduated from the great University of Florida in 1998. With a degree in criminology? Huh, unbelievable. He got his first break in coaching when he was named graduate assistant for none other than Steve Spurrier in 1999. He also went on to earn his degree, a master's degree in sports management from Florida. So his main reason for attending the University of Florida was to someday work for Steve Spurrier. That's it. Admired the man, wanted to work with him, wanted to learn from him. And not to mention the other vague, just out of this world reference, one of his college roommates, Howie Roseman. The reason why that name sounds familiar, Philadelphia Eagles GM. Yeah. So yeah, very, very wild twist there. I didn't know that at all. So again, you learn some new things when you do some research for a show. Fisch embarked right on a career in coaching while still as undergraduate, 97 and 98. He was the defensive coordinator for the P.K. Young Developmental Research School here in Gainesville. It's just known as PK Young, but it has ties to the University of Florida, received some funding, special programming, so on and so forth. After that, he went on to spend 1 year with the New Jersey Red Dogs of the Arena Football League as a wide receivers and quality coach. So in 2022, defensive quality coach with them. In 2004, offensive assistant with the Ravens, Brian Billick. In 2008, Denver Broncos wide receiver coach, Mike Shanahan. 2010, QB coach, Broncos. 2013, Jaguars OC. 2018, LA Rams senior offensive assistant. And Ben, get this, clock management specialist, CMS. Huh?
What a wild concept.
Right. In 2020, went over to the Patriots under Belichick, QB coach. 2020, hired as the Arizona head coach. And this was a wild fact as well. He never actually played. So one of the coaches in FBS who'd never actually played football. Bananas. In 2023, led Arizona to a 10-3 win season in the Alamo Bowl, ranked 11th in the AP poll, their highest in 26 years. In January of 24, became the 31st head coach at Washington University when Mr. Kalen DeBoer headed south for Alabama. So, comes from an interesting tree. He's a decent apple. He's got a lot of good, different veins in there of seeing it done the right way. Student of Belichick, Pete Carroll, Mike Shanahan, Sean McVay, Steve Spurrier. Modern offense, runs a very, very modern offense. In 2023, averaged 34.6 points per game in Arizona. Top 18 out of 133 FBS schools in the year. Here's the other thing. At Arizona, he was directly in charge of recruiting. In Washington, he's directly in charge of and involved with recruiting, hence why Washington's been able to rebuild after Kalen DeBoer left. So the main thing about Fish that I will say is, A, great tree, great genes, great lineage. He can coach, he can recruit, and he's all about modern offenses. He's about competition and earning your spot to play. If you don't earn it, you don't play. Very simple. I believe, although he's never played down a football, I believe he would be a good fit, B. How about you? Although I think you already let the cat out of the bag there.
Yeah, I like him. I think he definitely has the potential to be a good fit here. Obviously, the Florida ties help with that for me. I think the pride in the program and potentially working, maybe not for Spurrier, but, maybe alongside a little bit from a consultative standpoint. I think there's real promise there. So that one I really like. And I think there's a somewhat potential shot there. I don't know what his buyout is at Washington. To get him out of that contract, it could be a little steep. So that one might present a problem. But yeah, that one's definitely on the list. All right, next up, Eli Drinkowitz. Current coach of Missouri, for those that are not aware, a position he has held since the 2020 season, which is actually longer than I realized. He previously served before that as Appalachian State head coach in 2019, and he was also an assistant coach for NC State, Boise State, Arkansas State, and Auburn. His coordinator background is as a running back coach, tight end coach, and OC, as well as being a quarterback coach along with being the OC at that time. His group of 5 record as a head coach is 12-1, conference 8-1. His Power 4 record is 42-24, so not as good. And his conference record, all in the SEC, is 23-20, and 2-2 in bowl games. However, there's a caveat. I'll get there. Is he a good fit? I think he's a better fit than I want him to be, quite frankly, because I don't particularly care for him. It's just a personal thing. But ultimately, when we look at stuff on paper, he has shown that he is willing to give up play calling duties and hire an OC. What a concept, right? So here's a little stat for you. He did this after the 22 season at Missouri. His prior record at Missouri before hiring an OC, when he was calling the plays, was 17-19. Kind of familiar, right? 2 games below 500. Interesting. His record since 25-5.
Huh?
Yep. My questions around his fit are more the personality side of things. He just doesn't come across with a lot of pop. This is why I'm not hugely a fan. It's nothing personal. It's just there's nothing that pops off the page, right? There's no real personality stuff that really makes me go, oh yeah, man, he'd be a cool head coach. Like I'd like to watch him in a press conference. But then again, we currently have Billy Napier, so not a lot of personality there either. So can't get a whole lot less personality than that. So I'll leave that one there. I am curious though, before you transition over, what are your thoughts on Eli?
I'm not a big fan. He might be great for the Ozarks, but he's not good for the Swamp.
Yeah, I tend to agree. But again, the record does speak for itself there. And again, he was willing to make the tough decision, and it really paid off. So maybe there's something to it. And I think that one has a ton of potential of actually getting hired, by the way. So it's something we may need to come to grips with. All right. Wow. What's the last one on the list?
Lance Leipold, LL. 61 years young, coming out of Jefferson, Wisconsin. Okay, so get this, B. His senior year, I know it was a while ago, he had such a prolific passing game that he was donned the name Air Jefferson. Wild, I know. So, Coach said, I the random things that you find.
Yeah.
So, coached at Wisconsin Whitewater, his alma mater, finished his tenure at Wisconsin Whitewater, 109-6. Good night. 1994, hired in his full-time paid coaching position at the University of Nebraska, Omaha, affectionately abbreviated UNO. From 1994 to 2000, where he developed a reputation as a very strong recruiter. So that was phenomenal. In his first season, back at Wisconsin Whitewater, went 14-1, won the NCAA Division III championship. Second year lost championship game, but his worst year was 7-3 in 2012. Left Wisconsin Whitewater after 6 D3 national championships, 7 WEAC chips in those 8 seasons. In 2014, agreed to be the head coach at Buffalo. First 3 seasons, not ideal, 5-7, 2-10, and 6-6. His total record in Buffalo, 37-33. Did happen to win a Camellia Bowl, a Bahama Bowl, lost a Dollar General Bowl. That was that. And then in 2021, hired on as Kansas head coach. So here's what's the interesting thing is, when he was hired on as Kansas head coach, their first game, they won. And you're like, okay, well, you won as their first game, head coach as the first game. The problem was they hadn't won a game in 22 months. They did finish that season 2-10. So, quick to celebrate. 2022 season started 5-0, ranked for the first time since 2009 in Kansas. In 2024, started 4-0, won their first bowl game since 2008. Finished ranked in the AP poll for the first time since 2007. So there's that. Leipold, at the end of the day, his offensive philosophy has more to do with flexibility than anything else. He takes a look at the personnel that he has, and he molds his personnel to what the scheme is. His offense features everything from 10 personnel, 11 personnel, 12 personnel, goal line, specific packages, jumbo packages, spreading personnel out to move the ball vertically, as long as the personnel can achieve the desired goal. All those philosophies have always been there.
Did you say 10 personnel?
10 personnel.
What's that? I don't know what that is.
So 10 personnel, if I'm not mistaken, is something that you do that is, I don't know. You might have one running back and kind of no tight ends, and you kind of spread the football around the field, and you kind of have wide receivers out in space. And
are you sure you're allowed to put 4 wide receivers on the field? Is that thing you can do?
If you got speed and a little bit of talent, you can keep DBs on their heels, not their toes, that kind of thing.
Well, geez, I didn't even know that was legal.
Believe it or not, it is. So his entire coaching career, right, 171-69. Again, the main thing was Wisconsin Whitewater, 109-6. The Buffaloes, he went 37-33. And Kansas, so far, he's gone 25-30. However, got some great credentials. He's been in the game He, as they say, he's been in the league. He's had a cup of coffee. He's had more than a cup of coffee. He's had a 30-ounce Yeti full of it. He can be a good fit. Not sure what he looks like on the recruiting side. So I'd say in this case, Leipold in Gainesville is a good fit and is not a good fit. On the offensive side of the football, seems to be a great fit. As a CEO in charge of a major SEC program, that's where I have some deficiencies. What about you, Ben?
Yeah, I got Dan Mullen vibes all over the place for this, right? Not sure he knows how to run the whole organization. Not sure he can recruit well enough, right? He's going to be a good offensive play caller, but it might end there. I'm not a fan of this one at all. This would be last on my list of anybody that we listed. Bottom of the pile for me right here. Just my opinion, but I'm not. Kansas is not Florida by a long shot, so it would not make my top 3 or top 4 or top 6, right? Because that's where we're talking about is 6 here. So yeah, but with that, I think that kind of wraps up the ones that, again, we've kind of said are in the highest contention here. Now, listen, we could end up hiring somebody that's not even on this list. We don't know. These are just the ones that we've heard the most about, being talked about the most in terms of potential, right? So we wanted to go through this. We wanted to run it down. Hopefully it's been informative for everybody. We try to give, again, factual background on where these guys come from and what kind of coaches they are, and what that background is. So hopefully that's been insightful, and you have a little more idea of if we do hire one of these guys, hopefully soon, hopefully really soon, you'll have a little background as to who they are. And of course, if we do hire them, we'll do an even deeper dive into who they are and kind of get into the weeds really deep as to who that is and what that means moving forward. So with that, let's move it on and talk about Texas this week. So keep it or pitch it. Quick recap going back a couple weeks from the last time we did this, or I guess last week technically. I am 3-9 and Randy is 7-5. So I am getting my butt thoroughly whipped so far this season, much like the Gators. I'm just keeping it with the team, man. Keeping it with the team. I'm gonna see if I can stage a comeback this week, and we will get started here. So first on the docket, Texas ranks number 3 in the nation, actually, in rushing defense, allowing only 59.8 rushing yards per game, while Florida ranks 106th in the nation, as we already talked about, in rushing offense, averaging 123 rushing yards per game. So the keep it or pitch it will be Florida will rush for at least 120 yards this Saturday against Texas. Keep it or pitch it. Seems like a big number, but I should mention Texas has played 3 cupcakes after Ohio State, and they didn't let Ohio State get a lot of yards. Ohio State was pretty conservative in that game, so that's why those numbers are so low, I would argue. So that's why we made the number as high as we did at 120. So go ahead, keep it or pitch it.
Who's the starting QB, B?
For us?
I was kidding. Especially depending on if DJ's still in the boot. I know he's practicing if he's still in the boot, depending on if Tramel gets a snap or 2 or 10. Who in Sam Hill knows what's going to happen? Regardless of the fact, this is where Jaden Ball says, give me the ball. I will run the ball, and I'll make sure we get some production. I'm keeping it, B. I'm keeping it all day long.
I'm keeping it as well, and I fully expect Lagway to be the starting QB. With how Napier reacted last week to the rumors of him redshirting and all that stuff and him back throwing, I absolutely think DJ is going to play. Also, I think he wants to play this game because he didn't get to play against Texas last year, so I think he has motivation regardless of anything else going on. So I think DJ plays in this game, but I'm with you. I'm keeping it.
Motivation. Right. What a concept.
In theory, anyway, we're gonna anything about the offense right now is highly questionable. We'll get to that when we talk about the Sims here in a minute. All right, so Florida ranks 24th in the nation in scoring defense, averaging 16 points per game. And again, that number is actually skewed because one of those touchdowns was a defensive score or by the other team. So really, it's 14.3, I believe. But Texas ranks number 56 in the nation in scoring offense, despite having played 3 absolute cupcakes after Ohio State at 31.8 points per game. The Gators will hold Texas under 24 points per game in the Swamp. Keep it or pitch it. Now that's under 24. Keep it or pitch it.
I'm going to keep it. I feel like we're going to scramble enough or show Arch enough looks and sims and pressures and whatever else case might be. I'm going to get after him a time or 2 or 10. They're going to be hyped. It's going to be a what do you call it? A very definitive game for the Gators, regardless of what's happening with Napier. They're going to show up. They're going to play for each other. I'm keeping it.
I love your faith, man. I'm pitching this, and I'm pitching this only because I absolutely think the defense can do this. But the defense, much like we saw in Miami, cannot hold up if your offense just can't do anything. And until the offense proves to me that they can do something, be even moderately competent, which we have not been in 3 weeks, right? Until I can see that and know that that's possible and that can actually happen for any time in the remainder of this season, I cannot back the defense keeping a team as good and as talented as Texas under 24. I think they could keep them to 27, even despite that, right? 26, 27, much like Miami, right? I think that's fully possible. But
yeah,
when you can't get off, when you get off the field and you come right back on, and you get off the field and you come right back on, and you get off the field and you come right back on because your offense cannot do a single solitary thing, I think it's really hard to contain a team, especially one as good as Texas, to under 24. So I'm pitching it. I know a little longer explanation than normal, but that's my rationale. All right, last but not least, Texas ranks 102nd in third down conversion at 35.8%. I'm going to say that again, 102nd in third down conversion, despite playing 3 cupcakes after Ohio State. Their third down conversion is terrible. While the Gators defense ranks tied for 36th in third down defense at 32.8% conversion. So the Gators will win the third down battle. We're just going to split the difference here and say they will hold Texas under 34% conversion, right? So that's right in the middle of those two numbers. Keep it or pitch it.
Tough number for me.
Yeah.
I am going to pitch it.
Yeah, so am I. It's close here. I do think they're right around their average. I don't think they go way over or anything, but this is a tough number. I think Texas will be able to run the ball semi-effectively. They have been able to run the ball semi-effectively in the past several weeks. They have a stable of good running backs, including Gibson, who should be at Florida, but we messed that one up. So, yeah, that one hurts. So ultimately, though, I will say CJ Baxter does not look like the back that he was before he got injured, which is unfortunate for them and just for him in general. So that is unfortunate for them. But overall, they still have a ton of talent in that backfield, and I think with their ability to run the ball, despite what Arch Manning may or may not do or show or be capable of, right? Possibly the only quarterback that's disappointed more than DJ Lagway this season, though. Maybe not. You could debate that. They're both pretty down there. But anyway, ultimately, I don't think we quite hold them under this, but I do think it's close. So with that, move on to the Sims results here, and we will wrap this thing up. So very weird Sims results on this. Again, I changed those settings. I kept everything the same. And we went 6-4 against Texas here, which is highly surprising to me, especially when you look at some of the stats. So first of all, we allowed over 330 yards passing on average in these 10 games, and we allowed more total yards of offense to Texas than we gained in total yards. It was close, but it was about a 20-yard differential that they outgained us on an average. That's a head scratcher. How we went 6-4 with those numbers, it doesn't really make sense. However, I will say this. We did have 2 of those losses where we had a -3 turnover margin. So that could have potentially contributed to where we were outgaining them, but turning the ball over, right? So maybe, or outplaying them, I guess I would say. But then obviously they were able to outgain us because we kept turning the ball over, maybe. I don't know, again, the way the algorithm works here. We don't use this predictively, as we've said before, right? So again, not saying that's going to be the outcome in any way. It hasn't been right basically all season. Miami, technically, I guess you could say it was because it was 5-5, but just throwing it out as something we saw. The key stat, however, was very interesting. Scoring points. Our average points allowed, and again, I wouldn't necessarily relate this directly, but our average points allowed was 35.5 points. It's not why I pitched it. I promise it's not why I pitched it. And as you might expect, we needed to score more than that to win in the 6 games that we won. Specifically, we had to hit 37 points to win. If we hit 37, we won. If we hit 36 or less, and literally one time we hit 36 and lost, we lost. That was the deal. 37 or more, we won. 36 or less, we lost. Now, you know as well as I do with the way this offense looks, that ain't happening. There ain't no way.
Negatory, man.
especially against a pretty good defense in Texas, there is no chance this happens. So again, we don't use it as predictive, but it is something to keep an eye on. I would say if this game does somehow become higher scoring, somehow, really don't see that as happening unless the defense figures out to score, as one Mr. Spurrier said.
Yes.
I do not see how we are going to win this game. I really don't. If this is any real indicator of how it's going to go, right? And maybe it's not. But again, the game is predicting that we actually have an offense, which we don't. So when you see that, it makes you say, okay, so if we could produce there, even though it's projecting our defense to have some potential trouble, it doesn't matter because our offense can't produce. So again, not sure if any of that actually comes to fruition or not. These things have not been overly accurate as we talked about, though hopefully we're getting more accurate with some of the changes we made. At the end of the day, in theory, if we score a lot of points, we have a good shot in theory, but I don't think we're scoring a lot of points. So I don't think you're going to get to see a chance at this outcome anyway. So we'll see what happens. And if you're right about the defense being able to contain them, I hope you're right. I hope we are. So, but yeah, we will see what happens, and we will bring you our reaction with first bites, of course. And why don't you, I'll turn it over to you to talk a little about that, and we'll close this thing out.
Definitely. So look forward to our next pod. So, of course, we got Texas this coming Saturday, which is going to be October 4th. After that, we'll be doing our rapid reaction after the Texas game, and then our regularly scheduled pod breaking down the breakdown analysis of Texas versus Florida on Monday the 6th. So there you go, folks. Looking forward to those two, B. And outside of that, wherever you are, whenever you may be listening, thank you for taking the time, and we will see you around Gator Nation.